Chief Justice, Ministers, Parliamentarians, friends, distinguished guests. Good evening, everyone. A very special welcome to our guests from the United Kingdom. They are Robert Goodwill, Conservative MP and former Minister for Aviation, also Immigration and then Education. Robert, he reminded me this morning, will be remembered in Gibraltar as a UK Transport Minister who walked out of a meeting of the European Council in protest at unacceptable proposals that would be put forward by Spain a couple of years ago. Welcome also to Liz McInnes MP. Liz is a Labour MP and Shadow Foreign Minister who works as part of Emily Thornberry's team. Welcome also to Tom Brake, the Liberal Democrat spokesman for exiting the European Union and international trade. Also to Labour MP Mike Gapes, who is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Commons and is certainly no stranger to Gibraltar or to Gibraltar issues. And finally, welcome to William Humphrey. William is a member of the Northern Ireland Assembly, who replaced another great friend of Gibraltar, Nigel Dodds, when he moved to Westminster. We had the pleasure of meeting in Belfast when I was there in December at the DUP party conference. So I want to start by thanking the team at Gibraltar House in London and my team here in Gibraltar for making the visit possible. And I hope that our guests have had an enjoyable and productive day of meetings and engagements. I would like to take the opportunity this evening affords me to directly reflect on the progress we have made over the last year or so as we prepare to leave the European Union. As you know, 96% of Gibraltar voted to remain in the EU. That was a powerful statement by all accounts. After that vote, many of us thought that Europe would come to love Gibraltar. We thought Brussels would embrace us. But sadly, that did not happen. Instead, little over a year ago, at the insistence of Spain, a specific Gibraltar veto clause was inserted in the negotiating guidelines of the EU Council. So we found ourselves in a situation that we did not vote for, in a position where clearly we do not want to be, and heading in a direction in which we do not want to go. We knew that there would be challenges on the way. There are challenges for the United Kingdom itself. However, it is true to say that Gibraltar faces challenges which are quite unique and which are not shared by other members of the British family of nations. The shameful veto clause came as a considerable blow to this pro-European community. The clause was rejected both by the governments of Gibraltar and the government of the United Kingdom. It is the EU's position, not the UK's position. Nonetheless, it confirmed the fear that Spain might seek to take advantage of the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union to revive its outdated sovereignty claim over Gibraltar. You will recall that this intention had been spelled out clearly by the Spanish Foreign Minister himself, Mr. Margallo, at the time of the referendum. The UK, he said, was leaving. Gibraltar, he said, would be out. Shared sovereignty, he said, was a price to pay for any post-Brexit relationship with the European Union. For our part, we remain secure in the knowledge that Gibraltar can count on our many friends in the United Kingdom to work with us, to advance our interests, and to defend our position. But make no mistake about it, if the choice open to us were Europe with 50% Spanish sovereignty, or no Europe and 100% British, then we are British and we're out. However, that was never the real choice. Indeed, the new Spanish Foreign Minister, Mr. Dastis, subsequently made it clear that Spain would not seek sovereignty gains as a result of the Brexit negotiations. Despite this, it was particularly encouraging at the time to receive messages of support from the devolved administrations, also from many friends in the Westminster Parliament, who have been forthright and robust in defending the interests of Gibraltar. Indeed, it is worth recalling that the Conservative, Labour and Liberal Democrat parties, all represented here today, included the protection of Gibraltar's interests in their general election manifestos. Gibraltar is grateful too for the support expressed by the leadership and the members of the DUP when I was over there in Belfast in December, and I'm pleased that one of the Assembly members is also with us here today. In response to the uncertainty that was generated at the time, the Secretary of State for exiting the European Union, David Davis, told our Chief Minister that there would be no UK-EU agreement without Gibraltar. This means that the United Kingdom cannot claim a successful Brexit without Gibraltar being a part of it. Brexit in any other context would be a failure. The support that Gibraltar receives from the UK is arguably one of those rare unifying forces in UK politics today. We are proud of that. No matter what the ideological stand on other issues or the position on the political spectrum, the defence of our interests is a matter on which there is broad agreement at Westminster. This high-level cross-party support for Gibraltar in Parliament is matched by the positive spirit with which the UK and Gibraltar governments are going forward in the negotiations and are working together. We identified early on the importance of securing a number of bilateral UK-Gibraltar deliverables parallel to our discussion with the European Union. Some of these were concluded in March of this year. The result is continued access to the United Kingdom market for finance centre and online gaming entities based in Gibraltar. This has ring-fenced an important area of our economy. There are also significant agreements on tuition fees for our students and also in the area of health. This is in no small part due also to the efforts of the all-party parliamentary group on Gibraltar at Westminster. Indeed, the Chief Minister addressed the group in London only this morning. It is also a reflection of the determination on the part of many in this room to make Brexit a success. So, on the 19th of March, the draft legal text on the transition was published jointly by the UK and the EU. This correctly applies to Gibraltar, because the territorial clause that refers to us is coloured in green, and green means agreement. There is also then an asterisk which refers to the Spanish veto clause. This has remained the subject of disagreement in white. The very notion that Gibraltar should be excluded from the transition or the future relationship beggars belief. This is in nobody's interests. Nobody has anything to gain by leaving Gibraltar out. And many thousands of people here in Gibraltar and also in Spain itself have much to lose. Transition is an extension of the existing legal order. The extension of that legal order to all the UK family of nations, except this small corner of Europe, would represent discrimination of the worst possible kind. You will know that as we prepare to leave the European Union, the UK government, as a member state responsible, is negotiating on behalf of the devolved administrations, on behalf of the Crown dependencies, and on behalf of the overseas territories. That is nearly 20 territories and jurisdictions altogether. In that process, ministers and officials of the UK government continue to engage closely with the government of Gibraltar and member states of the European Union, including Spain, to discuss the implications arising from our own EU departure. As has already been said, the government of Gibraltar is directly involved in meetings which are relevant to Gibraltar. There has been speculation in the media this week about Gibraltar Airport, so I'd like to say a few words about that. Let me make it absolutely clear to start that Gibraltar will not cede an inch of our sovereignty, jurisdiction, and control. It is important to understand that this is more than just about actual sovereignty. This is also about the symbols and the ingredients of power, which are just as important. You cannot separate one from the other, particularly against the background of a continuing territorial claim by Spain. In other words, it is a contradiction in terms to put sovereignty to one side and then seek to advance the symbols of sovereignty in the same breath. The red lines of the Gibraltar government in relation to the airport are very clear. The red lines of the Spanish government are clear as well. There is space between those sets of red lines to seek positive cooperation with practical modern solutions which do not cross any of them. Many of you will know that in 2006 an agreement between Gibraltar, the United Kingdom and Spain provided for the enhanced use of Gibraltar Airport. This involved the relocation of the air terminal to the frontier fence and the construction of an adjoining building on the Spanish side, where they would carry out their own controls within their own territory. This was concluded before we were elected into government. There were aspects of the agreement at the time that the existing governments of Gibraltar and the government of Spain now did not like when we are both in opposition. It can nonetheless still serve as a basis for a broader discussion. The government of Gibraltar remains ready to engage with Spain as our next-door neighbour in a positive and constructive manner as we prepare to leave the European Union. Because it is in all our interests to continue to develop the wider region economically. Gibraltar employs 13,000 frontier workers, people representing every single member state of the European Union who live in Spain and work in Gibraltar. 8,000 of them are Spanish citizens. In a very real sense, we are a microcosm of what Europe is all about, and it would be a tragedy if this were lost going forward. Gibraltar residents spend over £70 million a year in Spain. Gibraltar companies purchase nearly £400 million a year from businesses in Spain. All our construction material, for example, comes from Spain. Gibraltar accounts for 25% of the GDP of the neighbouring area of Spain and is the second largest employer for the entire region of Andalusia after its regional government. I had the pleasure of meeting with a cross-border group on Tuesday. They represent trade unions and business organizations from both sides of the frontier. It is clear that we are on the same page. We are agreed that there needs to be a fluid border post-Brexit for the movement of persons and the movement of goods. However, this must not be extended to residents and to citizens. This must not be extended to frontier workers only. It must be extended also to residents and to citizens, indeed to tourists who account for a huge proportion of the economy and who then create the jobs which the frontier workers occupy. Spain has indicated that they have no wish to complicate passage through the frontier. Neither do we. There is scope for the generation of even greater shared prosperity than already exists at present. Gibraltar needs more land space and more workers. It is possible to conceive of a future where international firms are headquartered in Gibraltar and then provided with warehousing or manufacturing facilities on the Spanish side. We have the expertise and they have the space. Imagine the jobs and imagine the economic activity and the wealth that we could generate together. Shared prosperity already exists. It can be multiplied further still. However, international investors would need the security of a fluid border for that vision to finally materialize. Gibraltar therefore has the potential to become an unlikely Brexit success story. This can happen if the political goodwill exists to make it happen. Our geopolitical reality can be a major advantage in trade and in growth. This was recognized as far back as the Phoenicians, for whom the Strait of Gibraltar was a valued trading route. Today, the waters outside these windows are part of the busiest and most important shipping lanes in the world. Gibraltar already enjoys historic connections and friendly relationships worldwide, including with the United States and in North Africa. We are now building further our relationship with the Commonwealth as we leave the European Union. Having said that, and while there is certainly cause for optimism, we must not become complacent either. Through our combined sustained efforts, we need to protect the position of Gibraltar as we leave the European Union. We must do our utmost to ensure that Gibraltar is not discriminated against or left behind. We look to you, to our friends in the United Kingdom, for continued support. At the same time, we thank you for coming here. There is nothing like seeing Gibraltar to understand Gibraltar. Your presence is a reflection of your continued interests. And as we're all actually aware, there is much work that remains to be done. The negotiating guidelines that will direct the EU's position are diametrically opposed to the views of both the governments of the UK and the government of Gibraltar. It is up to all of us to capitalize on what we have achieved so far. But whilst we iron out the details, let me be absolutely clear. Gibraltar has enjoyed over 300 years of British rule. This is longer than the United States, Germany, or Italy have existed as independent countries. In that time, we have come of age under the broad umbrella of British values, traditions, and way of life. There are some lessons that we have learnt extremely well. One such lesson is never to give in to bullies, and you can rest assured that we never will. Thank you for listening.